3 days before our wedding, my fiancée vanished. No calls, no texts. Her mom said, she just needs space. But something felt off, so I tracked her down myself. Found her at a Lakehouse, in a robe, kissing him on the porch swing. She looked up and dropped her champagne glass. 3 days before our wedding, my fiancée vanished. No text, no call, no note on the counter. Just gone. At first, I thought maybe she'd gone out for air. We were both stressed, big guest list, a lot of pressure. I waited an hour, then 2, then the whole night. By morning, I started calling. Nothing. Her phone was off. I messaged her friends, her sister, even her hairstylist. No one had heard from her. Her apartment was untouched. Dress gone. Shoes missing. All her makeup still on the counter. I drove to her mother's house. That woman opened the door like she'd been expecting me. She just needs some space, she said. Calm. Dismissive. You know how she gets overwhelmed. I asked where she went. She smiled. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't worry. She didn't even invite me inside. Just shut the door like I was bothering her. Something about it felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced that speech. That's when my stomach dropped. I wasn't dealing with cold feet. I was being lied to. I got in my car and sat in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to make sense of it. Then I remembered the finance app we both used, Splitbase. We had it synced for wedding expenses, food runs, gas. I opened it. There it was. A gas station charge from the day before, 2 hours north of town. One of those backroad pit stops surrounded by trees and deer warnings. She'd never been up there before. I tapped into the transaction. There was a camera icon. The gas station had security footage. I didn't hesitate. I drove up there myself. 2 hours straight. Pulled into the gravel lot. Walked into the tiny shop and asked to speak to the owner. I told him I'd been tracking fraud, showed him the transaction from the app, and dropped Sophie's name. He didn't even hesitate. Yeah, I remember her. She was with some guy. Big black SUV, front bumper was cracked like hell. My throat went dry. He rewound the feed and pointed to the monitor. There she was. My fiancée, Sophie, wearing black yoga pants, sunglasses, a gray hoodie. Hair up, laughing, throwing 2 Red Bulls and a bottle of wine into a plastic bag. A man came out behind her, taller than me. Tan, designer watch, aviators. He handed her keys, and she kissed him on the cheek. I didn't know him. At all. The clerk looked over at me. They were headed toward Lake Faro, said they'd just check in before sunset. Lake Faro was secluded. Expensive. Private. Not somewhere you could just show up and rent a cabin. You needed a key code, or a gate pass, or connections. But I knew someone. My uncle used to work in local real estate. I called him and told him I was looking to book a spot for a proposal weekend. He sent me a filtered list of recent check-ins on private rentals that didn't go through hotel chains. I scanned the list and saw it. A rental under the name Chase Gordon. I cross-referenced that name with a car registration app. Black Escalade. Cracked bumper. Same guy. The rental had been booked 2 weeks ago. Check-in listed just 24 hours before Sophie disappeared. She didn't run away. She planned it. I drove out at dusk. Left my car behind the tree line half a mile from the gate. Walked through brush and thorns, shoes wet from lake mud. The property was isolated. One house. No boats. No lights inside. Just a flickering porch bulb and 2 people swaying on a wooden swing. I got close enough to see her robe. White. Satin. Her legs were folded into his lap. He had his hand on her thigh. She was drinking from a champagne glass and laughing. I took out my phone. Took photos. Then walked straight into the yard without a word. Sophie saw me first. Her smile died on her face. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the wood. She froze like a statue. He turned and blinked like I was a delivery guy. Had no idea who I was. I didn't speak. I walked straight up to him, grabbed him by the collar, and slammed his back into the porch beam. He tried to push off, but I landed a fist right in his ribs. He folded. One more punch to the face. He hit the ground. Sophie lunged to grab me, but I turned and shoved her away with one arm. She stumbled, caught herself on the railing, screamed my name like she had a right to use it. Still didn't say a word. I stepped over the guy, Chase, whatever his name was, and grabbed his wallet from the table. Tossed it into the lake. Same with his keys. They sank. Then I spotted the wedding dress bag, stuffed behind the swing. She brought it here. I yanked it out, opened it. It was her actual dress. The one we paid $3,200 for. The one we argued over for 2 weeks because the lace wasn't French enough. I popped the champagne bottle she was drinking from. Poured it all over the dress. Every last drop. Then I pulled out my lighter and watched it burn on the porch. She screamed and tried to put it out. Too late. Satin curls fast when it catches fire. The hem blackened and melted into ash. I looked at her once. No tears. Just shock. Horror. Like I wasn't supposed to be capable of this. Then I walked off into the dark without looking back. I didn't go home. I got back to my car, still hidden in the brush, and sat behind the wheel for 5 straight minutes without starting the engine. The image of her sitting on that porch swing in a robe, draped across another man, burned hotter than the flames I'd left behind. Everything made sense now. The missing calls, the smug tone in her mother's voice, the silence from her sister and friends. They all knew. They had been covering for her. She vanished because she didn't care what I would think. She thought I'd break quietly, crawl away with my pride shattered, that I'd keep it to myself to avoid the embarrassment. She didn't expect me to find her, or expose her, but that's exactly what I was going to do. I drove straight to her father's house, the man who had been funding her startup idea, the one who'd written a personal check for part of the wedding venue deposit. He was a quiet, controlled man, never smiled much, never said anything unnecessary, but he had a sharp mind, and he didn't tolerate stupidity. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I rang his bell. He opened the door in a robe, confused to see me. I didn't bother explaining. I pulled out my phone and handed it over. Photos, video, timestamped GPS data. His daughter with another man at a Lakehouse, 3 days before our wedding. He looked through it without speaking, then passed the phone back and told me to come inside. I sat across from him in his office as he pulled up his laptop. Within 10 minutes, he logged into a joint account and froze 2 credit lines. One was the business credit card tied to her project. The other was a personal fund her mother had been managing behind his back. He also called his lawyer and left a voicemail. That man didn't need drama. He used action. By the time I left his house, her financial lifelines were gone. Still, it wasn't enough. I started collecting everything I could. Screenshots, app history, GPS logs from our shared fitness trackers, hotel confirmation emails, transaction alerts she'd forgotten to delete, copies of the guest list, reservation numbers, registry login credentials. She left too many doors open, assuming I wouldn't look. The next day, I sent out an update to the wedding website. No dramatic statement, just the facts. The event was canceled. The venue had been notified. Guests should not arrive. For those who wanted the truth, I left a password-protected folder. Inside were photos from the Lakehouse, transaction screenshots, a PDF timeline from the day she disappeared to the moment I confronted her. People viewed it, hundreds of times. By that afternoon, texts started flooding in. Friends, co-workers, family. Some apologized. Some said nothing. But they all knew. The silence said it all. Her mother called me 4 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, none worth listening to. Just the same syrupy tone she always used when she wanted something smoothed over. She wasn't sorry. She was scared. She knew the image they built, wealthy, successful, elite, was about to get dragged through the dirt. Later that evening, I got a call from Sophie's office. She'd listed me as a spouse equivalent on her HR paperwork for health coverage. Filed for dental reimbursements using my name. She'd signed off on a partner travel grant claiming we were legally domestic. They were calling to verify it because of a tip they received anonymously. They suspended her pending review. She had been stealing from me, professionally and personally. Lying wasn't enough. She had turned me into a prop for financial gain. I also made sure to forward the footage and documentation to the bridal boutique where she'd picked up her dress. She'd charged the final installment on my card, then resold the dress online before leaving town. Another crime. Another record. I wasn't done. That night, I hired someone to pull everything on Chase, the man from the Lakehouse. Within an hour, I had a name, employer, and legal history. 1 DUI, a dismissed assault charge, a current open investigation into workplace harassment from his previous job. I forwarded his photo and the video from the confrontation, him laying hands on me in the scuffle, to his current employer's ethics board. I made no threats. I attached a single sentence. If you vouch for this man, do so knowingly. I didn't sleep for 2 days. On the 3rd morning, I got a call from the police. Sophie's mother had filed a complaint. Said I assaulted her daughter, destroyed private property, and stole valuables. The officer on the phone was polite but skeptical. I offered to come in voluntarily. When I arrived, I handed them everything. The footage, the time-stamped photos, the hotel receipts, screenshots showing the property was rented by Chase, not Sophie. Proof that she had used my credit cards and identity to gain financial access. The complaint unraveled in seconds. Instead, the officer took down my statement and turned the matter into an identity fraud case. They were already aware of Chase's record. It didn't take much to shift the direction of the investigation. The next afternoon, I saw a patrol car parked outside Sophie's mother's house. Chase was standing on the lawn, handcuffed, a detective speaking to him while another officer questioned Sophie. I didn't stop. I just drove past slow enough for them to see me. She caught my eye as they put him in the back of the car. Her face didn't show regret, just fear. The world she thought was hers was collapsing, and she had no idea how fast it could fall. The house they stayed in had been rented under a name tied to stolen credentials. The car he drove was already under an insurance flag for fraud. The wine and champagne she brought had been charged to a wedding account funded by her father's business. Everything she touched left fingerprints. Every lie she told had a receipt. And now, her entire life was unraveling in front of everyone she once tried to impress. I didn't even need to say anything anymore. The moment Sophie's lover got taken away in handcuffs, the story started spreading like wildfire. The guests we invited were now sharing the wedding website link in group chats I hadn't even known existed. Every few hours, I get a new screenshot from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, college friends, extended relatives, even an old coach, asking if it was real. It was. And the best part? I hadn't written a single sentence condemning her. Just facts. Just evidence. It's amazing how brutal the truth sounds when someone builds their entire image on lies. By the end of the day, I'd received 2 messages from bridesmaids backing out of her inner circle completely. One sent me her own thread, group messages from Sophie mocking the wedding, laughing about how bored she was, how she wished it would all go away so she could just be free again. The same bridesmaid admitted she'd known about Chase for over a month, but thought it was just harmless flirting. There was nothing harmless about it. The worst message came from her cousin, though. He forwarded me a text from Sophie's mother. She had been bragging weeks ago about how Sophie could do better than a spreadsheet nerd, and how she was relieved Sophie had found something exciting before she signed her life away. That same woman had smiled across the table from me at brunch just 2 weeks earlier, thanking me for making her daughter so happy. All of it was fake. I sent everything to Sophie's father. Every group chat, every message, every time-stamped lie. He didn't respond immediately, but the next morning I saw the public notice he posted. He was dissolving her company's investment, removing her access from their family trust, and liquidating any assets that had her name attached. The official reason listed was ethical and legal concerns. She had used her father's reputation to elevate herself. Now it was dragging her down with it. Her job wasn't any safer. The HR rep who'd contacted me earlier followed up again, this time with a formal apology. Sophie had been suspended pending internal investigation. They were confirming she'd falsified paperwork to receive extra paid leave during the wedding month. The same forms listed my income, my tax ID, my medical records. I hadn't signed a thing. I didn't need to pursue charges. Her company already had enough to open an internal audit. The moment they confirmed she forged signatures, they terminated her. No payout. No reference. That left her with no job, no family money, no fiancé. And then, the worst hit her. The church. We were supposed to be married in the same chapel her parents were wed in. Her mother had called in every favor to secure it, donation receipts, connections, planning meetings with the clergy. When the presiding minister saw the evidence I submitted, he sent a statement to the entire wedding guest list. The marriage was not only canceled, but the family's access to venue use was suspended indefinitely. His letter included a clear condemnation of both the infidelity and the fraudulent use of donations meant for church outreach. That may have stung worse than the money. Her family's name was carved into one of the chapel's pews. Now it would mean nothing. Sophie tried reaching out. First it was a long message, rambling and self-pitying. She claimed she was confused and pressured, and that she'd felt lost in the whole process. I didn't answer. Then came a shorter one. A threat. Something about defamation. About lawyers. I sent it straight to mine, along with a few more emails I'd been saving, screenshots of her laughing with her friends about how easy it was to manipulate dumb men with good jobs. She hadn't even tried to hide it. The same jokes repeated over and over, about how boring I was, how safe, how easy it was to let me pay while she explored options. Her words, not mine. Later that week, I stopped by the Lakehouse one last time. Not to talk. I went because I needed to look her in the eye again. Not with love. Not with grief. Just clarity. The swing was still broken. The dress ashes were long gone. Her hair was tied up, and she looked nothing like the person I proposed to. Just someone worn out, scared, and scrambling. She tried to speak. I didn't let her. I opened the trunk of my car, pulled out a box, and set it on the porch. Her laptop, the wedding binder, and a framed photo from our engagement party. All of it worthless now. On top of the box was a single envelope. Inside was a copy of the lawsuit notice. Civil damages for identity theft, misuse of joint financial property, and attempted slander through false police reports. I didn't need her arrested. I just needed her to fight it. Because she'd lose. And she knew it. As I turned to walk away, she didn't follow. She just stood there, barefoot on the porch, staring at a version of her life that didn't exist anymore. I left without saying anything. I had no interest in hearing her excuses, because at this point, there was nothing left for her to protect. Not her image, not her job, not her family standing. She destroyed all of it on her own. I met with her father one last time. He'd invited me to a private office, not his house. Neutral ground. Just a clean desk, a pot of bitter coffee, and a man who looked 10 years older than he had last week. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't apologize for her. He simply thanked me for giving him the full picture before it was too late. Then he handed me a document folder. Inside was the termination of all financial ties between him and his daughter. He had pulled the plug on every channel: investment accounts, housing assistance, the car in her name that he technically owned, even the post-grad tuition loan he'd been quietly paying off behind her back. He said she was on her own now. No appeals. No reinstatement. He also confirmed something I'd suspected. Her mother had been enabling her for years. Every lie Sophie told was shielded, justified, or spun into something noble. She had learned it at home, and she'd used the same tricks on me. But with this, her father had finally drawn the line. I took the papers, nodded once, and left. No celebration. No relief. Just confirmation that the damage I was doing wasn't revenge. It was cleanup. That afternoon, I dropped off a second box at the Lakehouse. It wasn't much, just the things she'd left behind in my apartment that I hadn't thrown out yet. A few dresses, a curling iron, her journal, unopened mail, and the key to the car she no longer owned. But on top of everything, I placed a bottle of cheap champagne. The kind she used to mock. The brand she once said was for people who think bubbles make something expensive. I'd scratched 3 words into the glass with a knife. You earned this. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't knock. I just left the box on the porch, turned around, and walked back to my car. But I didn't leave. I parked 50 yards up the road and waited. It took 15 minutes. She opened the door, saw the box, and picked up the bottle. She read the message. Her face tightened. She looked over her shoulder, probably checking if Chase was home. Then she turned the bottle upside down and hurled it into the yard like that would undo the message. After another few seconds, she stormed back inside. That was enough. But I had one last piece to finish. There had been one part of the Lakehouse that stuck with me from the first night. The swing. That porch swing. The one she was sitting on, wrapped in a robe, laughing while I was losing my mind. It wasn't just a swing. It was her throne. I returned after dark. No headlights. No sound. I stepped onto the porch and stared at that swing, the same beam I'd driven her lover into, the same space where she toasted the end of our engagement without saying a word to me. Then I lit the match. The swing caught quickly. I'd brought lighter fluid this time. I didn't touch the rest of the house. I didn't even go near the door. Just that one symbol. The place where it all cracked. I made sure it burned fast, bright, and hot. The flames lit up the front yard, reaching up through the rafters, licking the posts. But not enough to spread. Just enough to leave scorch marks behind. Enough to make it unmissable. Let her explain that to the property owner. Let her pay that bill herself. I walked away as the wood snapped and cracked behind me. The smell of smoke thick in the cold air. My hands smelled like gas for 3 days after, but I didn't care. No one stopped me. No one even knew I was there. And that was it. I didn't go back again. Didn't monitor her social media. Didn't ask mutual friends what happened next. I wasn't interested in watching the aftermath. I just wanted her to feel it. Everything she took for granted, money, reputation, family, comfort, the safety net, was gone. Because I cut every thread she used to climb above people like me. I exposed her, humiliated her, destroyed the false structure she built from my loyalty. She tried to play a game with my life. She lost. Now she could live with that. Or not. Either way, I wasn't going to waste another moment wondering what she felt. I already knew. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.